So I find that if people are moving from an area that is not a desert, like the Pacific Northwest or the East Coast or even Chicago, these two neighborhoods people are obsessed with. And the reason for it is they're very green and lush, and they don't look like your typical, Phoenix neighborhood with the stucco siding and the tile roofs. And these neighborhoods are actually only about 1.5 miles from one another, maybe 2 miles, but they're very, very different. There's some stark differences. So we're going to compare them and see if either of them would be the right neighborhood for you. Also, I'm Courtney Strelzik. I'm a local real estate agent here and hopefully can share some good insight into my city. But let's talk about Agritopia to start off with. Now, one thing to keep in mind when you're out in the wild, and if someone references Agritopia, they're typically meaning not just the neighborhood, but the whole community area or mixed use area. So Agritopia was actually initially this farm. It was like 160 acres, and the Johnston family actually bought it in the 60s and slowly started developing it over time. So on the west side, you're going to have more of your neighborhoods. In the center, you're actually going to have the remaining part of the farm, and then also a lot of Gilbert's most staple restaurants like Joe's Farm Grill, the coffee shop. And the preserved farm is actually really beautiful. There's a walking trail around it. There's actually an area that's a community farm where you can rent a plot of land. It's like 20 by 20 feet and actually start your own garden there. And then about 2.5 years ago, they actually opened the Epicenter. And this is a huge multi-use building. You have luxury apartments in the upper levels, and on the ground level, you actually have some restaurants, some fantastic restaurants. There's some shopping, and then there's a couple gyms there as well. And the Epicenter, this specific area, has become quite the hot spot. I mean, it's not uncommon to see on a Friday, Saturday night, a lot of these restaurants have really, really long wait times, but it's really beautiful. It's very well kept. And as far as just the character or feel of this neighborhood, Agritopia, there's one big thing to note. Okay, so Phoenix East Valley is known to not be very walkable. You really need a car to get around. Now, I would say the very unique thing about Agritopia is you can walk to several restaurants. There's an Air Guitar, which is like this crazy, beautiful convenience center. It's much more than a convenience center. You have to go there to know what I'm talking about. You have to experience it. But it's very easy to walk around when the temperature is not super hot, and you just don't see that in other areas of the Phoenix East Valley. On the same note, it's much more condensed living, I would say is the best way to describe it, or it's a little bit more smushed than Morrison Ranch, so it's not going to be quite as quiet. But let's talk about the overall feel of Morrison Ranch. And yes, it's only 1 mile or 2 north, but it has a very different feel and overall aesthetic. It's much more open, spread out, and definitely quieter. I would definitely say it has somewhat more of a suburban vibe to it than Agritopia. The first time I actually drove through Morrison Ranch, I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm in a Disney film. It's just so picturesque. There's tree-lined streets. There's these white picket fences and flowers. There were kids everywhere on their bikes. It just felt like this utopia place to raise your family. So Morrison Ranch is technically a master planned community. So it is huge. There's a lot more homes in this neighborhood than there is in Agritopia. And there's a lot of different subdivisions within the master plan community. Another huge difference is they're just homes in Morrison Ranch. You don't have this farm or this epicenter with all these different restaurants. Now, there is a town center or a shopping center in the middle of the community, but this is more going to be like your standard strip mall. It's definitely very nice and well kept. They have a grocery store. I think they have a couple different restaurants or like a karate studio. They also have 4 Silos, which is a fantastic coffee and tap house. But generally on a Friday night, no one's like, oh, let's go to Morrison Ranch for dinner. No, they're going to the epicenter in Agritopia. The home styles in both Morrison Ranch and Agritopia are very, very different as well. So in Agritopia, the homes are actually quite adorable. A lot of them emulate more of a craftsman style home or even like a farmhouse. You have front porches, there's swings, variety of color, a little bit more character than what we're accustomed to in Gilbert. The homes were built in the, early mid 2000s, and they were built in 2 different phases. The first section or phase of development, these are more of the typical homes people envision when they talk about Agritopia. Most of these are going to be single level homes, but interestingly interestingly enough, a lot of them have basements, which is somewhat of a rarity in the East Valley or Phoenix. The setback of the homes isn't going to be as far. And what I mean is how many feet you are from the road and how many feet away the house is from your next door neighbors. So considering this, you aren't really getting much of a front yard, and your backyard, it really depends on the house, but you aren't getting a huge lot. But the trade-off for not having a huge yard is you do have a lot of community amenities. There's some parks within the neighborhood. And then directly next door, you also have Cosmo Park, which is a great city park here in Gilbert. But if you really are hoping for a large yard, this is probably not the right neighborhood for you. Now, as far as pricing, you are looking more in the 7-figure range for this phase of development for the first area I'm going to talk about. Right now, home prices are starting at 1.1 and then go all the way up to 1.8, but I have seen some homes slightly below and then slightly higher as well. So a lot of homes in this second phase of development, they are going to be much smaller, more of a starter type home. And the biggest reason why they're less expensive is because they're on super tiny lots. So a lot of these lot sizes are about 2,500 to 3,000 square feet. So basically, you're not really getting a yard, you're getting more of like a patio and a shared driveway as well. You don't have a really big driveway. However, they're priced about $500,000, maybe a little bit higher, a little bit lower, depending on the specific home. So yeah, it's much less than $1 million home. Now, because Morrison Ranch is such a bigger community, you're gonna have a lot more options when looking at types of homes and also price range. So for example, Highlands Groves, that's one of the older parts of the neighborhood. A lot of those homes were built in the early 2000s. And then the newest part, Lakeview Trails, a lot of these homes were built in the past handful of years. There are some homes I've seen in like the 500s, but again, similar to Agritopia, these are going to be more like starter type homes. You might have a little bit larger lot than you do in Agritopia, but it's still going to be a pretty modest home. And then you do see a lot of single family homes in the 7, 8, 900s. That's where a lot of the listings are priced at. And then you have homes all the way up to 4 million. You have true luxury properties in this neighborhood. I do also want to bring up community amenities and HOA fees because neither of them are necessarily cheap. They both do have a pretty hefty HOA fee. So one thing to know for Agritopia, as far as community offerings, they have an actual clubhouse, they have a workout facility, pool, pickleball, tennis, they got pretty much everything. But the HOA is not cheap. It's paid quarterly, but it comes out to about $245 a month. So Morrison Ranch is definitely less expensive than Agritopia. It depends on what specific subdivision you are in within the master plan community, but typically you're looking at anywhere from $110 to $140 a month. Now throughout the neighborhood, you have tons of green spaces and parks and sports courts, pickleball, tennis. The one thing that you do not have though is a community pool. So that's something important to note because I know a lot of people that's a must for them. Now, of course, I can't cover everything about both of these neighborhoods in this video, but in a couple weeks, I will be posting a video breaking down Morrison Ranch. So make sure you subscribe. And then in the meantime, go ahead and watch this video right here where I break down the ins and outs of Agritopia. Thank you so much for your time and have a fantastic day.